All right, today we're going to be talking about using lean in project management. And many of you have been exposed to lean for a number of years. As it has roots in manufacturing. It has roots in Toyota, and so many of you have looked at this. But lean has so many components that really would help us and does help us in project management. And so that's one of the reasons why over the holidays I started writing about this a little bit to do this particular webinar, because lean is an important piece. It's very much part of agile project management and Scrum. Even though it might be under that umbrella and kind of an undercurrent of it, it's very much embedded in it. And in traditional, it can be embedded even more than what we might be using it right now. And so this isn't going to make you an expert. This is just going to hit some of the highlights of lean, but it'll be something for us to consider and something for us to think about as we look at all these different things. Now, lean is not an afterthought or something an organization turns on and off. It's a plan for higher efficiency and higher performance. So the idea behind lean in a nutshell is, what is the least amount I need to do to be able to meet the requirements and produce what the customer wants? It's how can we become more efficient and effective? Now, many of you maybe have heard lean, but it was lean in the area of process improvement, or lean in the area of Six Sigma. All of that's absolutely true. Lean connects to all of those kind of pieces for sure. But today, as we talk about lean, looking at it from the eyes of project management, can we become more efficient in project management? And the answer is absolutely in so many cases. Now, the origin of lean, depending on who you read and researching it, people will go back to different groups. Some will just go back to Toyota because they made it very famous. But some researchers believe lean goes all the way back to the 1700s with Eli Whitney. And he used the same type of processes to create parts and in the rifle manufacturing world. And that might be true. But the point is, you're looking at how can we minimize the number of steps? How can we minimize and shorten the process? How can we create a product faster? How can we not cause a lot of waiting time, which is not valuable to our customer? Some will even quote that Henry Ford came up with it, used these ideas when creating the Model T. All of that could be very true as well. Now, the definition of lean is it's a philosophy, a methodology, and a tool used by many, but was formalized by Toyota's manufacturing system. That's when it seemed to have exploded probably the most. And that's when many people caught on, because in building the car in a manufacturing situation, they were looking at minimizing steps that each worker had to make, minimizing the steps they had to make for putting a car together on the assembly line. And so they just really honed that type of process. Lean reduces waste. It increases the speed for serving the customer, creating products, increasing efficiency. And all of us have been subject to seeing where there was a lot of wasted time in so many cases. One of the things that you're noticing right now with all the restaurants, you're having to do all the drive-ups and drive-throughs with so many of the restaurants. Many of the restaurants would benefit by looking at something like a Chick-fil-A or some of these new coffee franchises that have come out. They have really tapped into getting people's coffee as they're coming through the drive-through, very much the way Chick-fil-A has. And so in spite of that, we sit in lines for 40 minutes to get food that's half warm by the time we get it, because of all of these kind of things. So the point is that it's helping with that efficiency when it's used. So where can lean be applied? Lean can be applied in a lot of different places. Now, many times people think, well, we're not manufacturing. Manufacturing is only one piece where it's been used successfully. It's been used in services. It's been used in projects. And so enterprise-wide manufacturing projects, services, teams, both traditional and agile, have the capability of using lean. The organizational culture can become more lean. Value production for the customer. It creates long-lasting relationships. So lean has a lot of very positive things for us to do and use, as if we will put it into our methodology and if we will put it into our day-to-day activities. So why should someone even consider lean in the first place? Well, it's not just terminology or verbal gibber, because what happens is that we can talk that we're more efficient. We can talk that we bring value to the customer, but the customer is going to know whether you're bringing value to them. If you're waiting in a line and that's waiting time, that's sucking down your time, that's a lack of value for that customer. It allows for customization. And this is where I think it's going to benefit project management, especially on the agile side, because because it allows for that customization of that project, or those pieces of the project, to be able to do something faster, to be able to get something out the door faster, to get those features to the customer faster. It's not considered to be a quick fix, though, and that's one of the things that sometimes people will look at. They want it to be something super easy, super fast, easy, quick fix, not hard to get going, not hard to stop. And this is something that people are going to have to be trained in, because it's a shifting of the mindset. For those of you who have done this, you know what I'm talking about. It has proven success. It has centralized decision making, to where we can make the decision and not have to ask 15 people for approval of something. We're able to then be able to move on. Now, why aren't more organizations lean? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but let me just give you a couple of those that are some of the more prominent ones. Some organizations think that using strong processes are not worth the effort and cost. And so when you see this, a lot of times people don't want to really go through the processes, and they definitely aren't interested in trying to streamline them. Those processes have been in place for a long time, and they don't want to fight those kind of battles. And I get it. I understand that. But the problem is that over time, those processes usually get bogged down with more and more non-value added waiting time in it. And you can see that, look in your own organization and see if that's not true. Other companies will think lean hurts the return on investment, because you're investing money over here to train people in this methodology, this philosophy, these tools. And they think that, well, we've got so much expense over here, but not realizing that that expense is an investment for return on investment that you're going to get later on. And then negativity over making improvements or getting better. You'll always have somebody who wants to be negative. And of course, and if the organization has had a lot of failures in getting new things going, then they're going to look at this as like the new flavor of the month. And so they're going to have a tendency to look at something like this, and they're going to have a tendency to be resistant. But lean has some of the best tools and best capabilities to be able to put into a project, a manufacturing, a service, whatever we're doing, to be able to make things better. But it's not something that's just going to happen by snapping our fingers. So let's start talking about preparing a lean program. Lean implementation can be similar to putting together a project. For a matter of fact, you could have the lean implementation could be a macro project for that enterprise or for that organization, because you're looking at streamlining the processes, you're looking at making sure that you're bringing value to the customer, and you're making sure that you're looking at as fast a delivery as possible. So all of those components are very positive for the customer, but they're going to be positive for the business as well. Lean requires support from organizational leadership, preparation from which processes add value to the projects or culture, and the creation of a plan for implementation. Lean also includes metrics to sustain continuous improvement throughout the organization. Continuous improvement is another piece that PMI has really hit with the new PMBOK. If you bought PMBOK 7, they're really hitting this. And so we're writing a program on continuous improvement that we'll be rolling out in a few months as well. And so continuous improvement has to be, how can we get better? How can we provide this product or service to our customers in a better or faster way? Now, I ran across this graphic, and I thought it was really, really interesting. And this is a graphic on performance by Carroll, and Carroll really showed the foundational blocks of lean performance there at the bottom. And then you'll notice that he's got business process reengineering, and that would be the re-engineering of the processes themselves. And of course, we've heard about that for all the way back to the 70s. And then you've got your process system innovation, and that's going to be the new processes that go into place so that we can be competitive with new technology, new ways of doing business, maybe new products even. And then you'll notice at the top, he's got lean performance. And so how are we doing to perform, taking it from the old, which are just the old processes, over to this process system and innovation. And so I thought this was a great graphic to show that overview. And I liked it when I ran across it, decided I would show it. But the point is that this doesn't mean that this is easy, even though this looks real simplistic and very understandable. It's still going to be difficult. It's still going to take time to move from the old business processes that are inefficient and to determine which ones of those need to be changed, and then to get those changed over into a new system that everybody's using with consistency there. So here are some of the principles from the Lean Practitioner's Handbook that I thought was interesting. Value, and we all talk about value. Most of the time when we talk about value, we're talking about return on investment or benefit to the customer. And then what's the value stream? Do we know the steps that we have to do or use to provide that value to the customer? They talk about flow, they talk about pull, and they talk about perfection as the principles of Lean. And as you go through each of these principles of Lean, one of the pieces is, once again, it's very customer focused. And that's the reason why many people love this, is because you are talking about efficiencies for the company. That's true, but you're also talking about being customer focused, to where the customer is getting what it is that they want at a faster pace consistently. So when we talk about value, one of the things that you could do is make a list of the value described by the customer. Now, you're not trying to look at it through your eyes, but what would the customer say is value to them? Speed, savings, the new abilities, whatever it is, the benefits that are coming to that customer is going to be that part of it. And then if you look at value stream, list the steps associated with providing that piece of value. What are the steps? And that's going to be part of that process that we were talking about. And so you're wanting that process to be as strong or as streamlined as possible. And then think about the flow. Increase the flow by removing bottlenecks or impediments. Because once again, how many sign-offs are there, for an example? Nothing wrong with a sign-off. Don't mistake what I'm saying. Sign-offs are fine, but we've also been in those situations where some of the sign-offs are silly. You got 15 sign-offs on something and you're thinking, did that really make any difference in the quality or in anything that we're doing here, but except sucking down time as we go through? And many times that's what we'll notice. When you see the pull, you provide only what the customer requires and no more. Now, in the customer service world, we talk about meeting or exceeding customer expectations. So that's great when you're talking about expectations from a customer service standpoint. But when you're talking about a project standpoint, when we exceed those requirements, that's going to be scope creep, and it's going to cost us more, and it's going to be beyond what the customer wants. So providing only what the customer requires and no more is going to be a huge thing. And then this last piece of seek perfection by looking for ways to improve the product or process. Now, nobody's perfect, and nobody's claiming that we are going to ever reach perfection. We're always trying to get better. So the thing is, that's what you're trying to do even as an organization. What can we do when we find something that needs to be changed? We change it. And a lot of companies will become very efficient, and you're constantly working or tweaking something all the time. Now, the focus of Lean kind of goes into these three different directions here. So let's bring it back to this and kind of dig a little deeper here. So you've got culture that supports Lean, you've got efficiencies like we talked about, and you've got processes. The culture, though, has to be more than just what we say. It's got to be the actions and the behavior that we're supporting that Lean mindset. It's got to be have a culture to where we're all using the same language. We're all in agreement. You don't have somebody over here sabotaging it, or somebody over here chipping away, being anti-Lean with what you're trying to do. Every management's going to be supportive, the workers are going to be supportive, the teams are going to be supportive, and so forth. So let's take a look at culture for a moment. The culture of Lean focuses on changing the organization internally so that it is open to ideas and suggestions to make the organization better. Culture adjusts to how the organization treats people, accepts suggestions, and makes decisions. Now, here's one of the weird things, and see if you identify with this. It doesn't take most of us very long in the project management world to get stuck in something to where we're waiting or we're looking at something, and we automatically kind of go into this evaluation mode. And so most of you probably have done this like I have. So you go into this evaluation mode and you start looking at this situation where you're having to wait for something, and you start thinking, I can tell you 5 ways how to speed this up and fix this process, or how to fix this situation. And that's what makes you such a good project manager, is that ability to evaluate and look at the inefficiencies of what that problem is. And most of us have that if you're in project management, because you live with it day after day. The part of the culture, though, is that we would all have that, and we would all be looking at how can we make this more efficient? How can we streamline this to be much more efficient? Now, let me chase a rabbit here real quick. COVID has been a horrible deal in so many ways, But as you look at some of the efficiencies that have come out of COVID, because people are not wanting to touch you, or they're not wanting to touch your credit card, or they're not wanting to do so many things, you see some efficiencies that have actually benefited how we exchange, how we interchange with customers and with vendors. Because, like for an example, how many restaurants have you gone to where, man, they have streamlined that process of being able to pay and get you the food, because they're not wanting to touch you because of, once again, because of the pandemic. And so what you've noticed is that has caused us to look at things totally different and using technology to be able to do this. I like being able to pay at my table. I don't want to have to wait for my waitress. I like being able to put my tip and everything on, punch the button, and I can get up and leave. And that's just me. That's just one of the things I like. And so now I think of how many different restaurants you eat at, that if you do eat there, they've got the little kiosk on the table to allow you to go ahead and pay, so you're not having to touch someone. The efficiency piece, can our organization get better? Can I get better? Can I be a better speaker? Can I be a better trainer? Can our company be better? We write better material? And then, can the processes get better? To be able to take a person from one point to another? Can the organization continue to get stronger and focus on change? Change is always is kind of clumsy, and you have conflict when you have change a lot of times. But the point is, we're having to change, and we're changing pretty darn fast right now with how are we going to do business, and how are we going to survive all of this with the pandemic, and how you're going to survive all of this to be able to see what next year is going to be and the following year. So we look at things differently. And so efficiencies is going to be a piece of it. Now, there's a process for better efficiencies. For an example, analyze the vulnerable areas of the organization. What areas are vulnerable? Define the future performance level. And so when you're talking about defining the future performance level, you're looking at really three sides. We're looking at the behaviors of our people to produce that level of performance, the attitude of our people to produce that level of performance, and what practices, what other actions do we have to produce that. All of those go together. That's like a three-sided stool that goes together to be able to produce those type of efficiencies. And so we are having to look at business differently. We are having to do business differently. And then you're looking to see, okay, are there any gaps associated with any of this? Also, brainstorm a list of adjustments to help the organization, the process, or the behaviors. What area really needs our work to be able to get rid of this? And then prioritize the list on which ones have the most benefit and the resources to support it. And then plan implementation of the new processes or the new behaviors. Now, all of that can change, and you're seeing some of this happen evolutionary in an evolutionary way. For an example, because I think of how many people are not working today as 2 years ago. How many people are working from home, which changed the culture. Think of how many people went ahead and retired, which has changed the culture. You've got more millennials you're hiring right now, which changes the culture because the mindsets are totally different. Nothing wrong with that. But the point is that some of this is just evolving because of the nature of what we're involved in. And the third part of that stool was the processes. And this is sometimes difficult because processes are sometimes treated like the holy grail that we can't touch them. And that's a wrong way to look at it. Our processes need to be efficient. And if it's not working, then we need to start making some changes to adjust those. So changing processes requires a supportive culture, an organization open to efficiencies and a willingness to change slow or ineffective processes that's not working. Organizations must look for ways to remove steps from the process. And the steps that you're really talking about is not just a step per se. If that step brings value, but it's that waiting time that we're talking about. So somebody's having to wait 3 hours, or somebody's having to wait 45 minutes, or somebody's having to wait whatever the length of time is. That's looked at as non-value added to the customer. And so how can we get that out of that situation? So what this takes you to is this idea of lean transformation. And so it requires several things. And so we've kind of bundled it for you here. Management support, team approach, move from jobs to projects to where people are working on something they're able to produce, finish, and hand off. Employees' commitment, a multi-year viewpoint, and training at all levels. All of this is what you're looking at to be able to transform an organization into lean, and to be able to utilize it in your projects and not just give word support, but there's really no actions to that. More and more companies and more organizations are moving from a person doing a job to a project, and we all know why that is because that project I'm able to hand off to someone. They're able to make decisions and get that done, and there's a finish line to that project because it's temporary. And so that's a positive thing that people are starting to do. Now let's talk about project culture. Okay, so a definition of project culture: projects are short, temporary events to produce a product, service, or output. A project's culture is set by the methodology, authority, and communication of the organization. And placing lean into a project culture means more than discussing lean topics. It requires planning to include all lean drivers. Now, what you're doing with lean is that you're putting it into your processes so that you can make your project not only more efficient, but faster in so many areas. And so this means that you're having to look with critical eyes at how you're doing some of the things right now. And some people will get a little crusty over that because they think, well, we're doing it good right now. And you probably are doing it good, but are you doing it great? And that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to take it from good to great is really what you're trying to do. So projects are going to be run in one of three ways. Traditional waterfall, which is traditional project management. We're running it through the 5 processes of initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. We can do it through Agile or Scrum. Scrum is the #1 Agile methodology that's out. And so we could do it in Scrum, to where we're running it in iterations and handing off a piece of the project to the customer. Or you could do it in hybrid, and hybrid is becoming one of the fastest growing pieces. We have just written, and if you're on our newsletter, we just sent out our newsletter with a 2-day hybrid course that I've been working on all over the holidays, and just finished it. And so we've just registered with PMI, haven't even taught it yet. I mean, it literally just went out last week. And so hybrid is kind of a mixture between traditional and agile, but it's more than that. It could be hybrid based on the organizational type. It could be hybrid based on communication and authority. And so we went a little bit broader on hybrid because we think that's going to be much more stable. But hybrid is exploding because we're trying to make something work, and traditional is not working 100%, and we can't do all of Scrum or Agile. And so what happens is we've got something kind of in between. So it focuses on the tools, the methodologies, and the culture. So let's look at traditional for a moment. So this is a command and control type of process. By command and control, what it means is that we've got all of the scope up front, and so we're going to deliver all that scope at the end. And that's the goal here. We don't want anything to change without going through detailed change control, and that's how we control it. So this works well for a lot of different things. The goal is that nothing changes without going through change control. Types of project that work for this really well is going to be predictive projects, construction projects, anything where 100% of the scope is known up front, and we're going to deliver that scope at the end. That's a great traditional project. One main delivery at the end of the project, all of that supports traditional projects. Scrum or Agile projects, which are used a lot with many of your software projects or product development, also are being used in a very powerful way. They focus on providing small sections of functionality or features to that customer in short iterations that could be 4 to 8 weeks in length, and they're handing that off to the customer. The goal is to allow the customer, through the product owner, to regroom or prioritize the features as they are handed off. Types of projects that work best for this are going to be software, product development, projects that can be handed to the customer in piecemeal and them get some value out of it. And so multiple demos, multiple handoffs to the customer, which gives them value earlier and allows them to give feedback earlier. So Agile and Scrum is very beneficial for many of the things that you do. And the problem's not so much with the Agile or Scrum itself, but it's the mechanism of how we're going to support it. And that's the reason why a lot of people have to do something like a hybrid. And so with a hybrid culture, it uses techniques and tools from both Waterfall and Scrum, and you decide as the team which one you're using. So you use tools, techniques, methodologies which make sense for that particular project. Any project which sees value in using a variety of tools and techniques is who would use this. But the delivery of this can include one main handoff at the end, or it can include multiple handoffs, because so you could go on either side, be more like traditional, one big handoff, or be more like Scrum, multiple handoffs if it was going to bring value there. But the point is that you're wanting to be efficient, regardless of which of these three you're using. You're wanting that efficiency to be there. And so you're wanting it to be there with lean. You're wanting it to be there, that lean to work all the way through, whether it's in traditional, hybrid, or whether it's in Agile or Scrum. So let's focus a moment on building a lean program for projects. So request for a project comes into the PMO or comes into your office, okay? So then the next layer that you go into is really these two questions. Which methodology works best, and what areas bring value to this project? And so you're looking at that, and this is going to help you with that lean mindset. And then that allows you to then go to that third level of, okay, do we do waterfall? Is that methodology going to work the best and bring the most value? Is Agile or Scrum going to do it, or is hybrid going to be the one to do it? Because once again, that lean mindset is carrying into even the choice of the methodology, because you're trying to bring that value to the customer. Now, there's some aspects of lean for project management. You're giving high customer value, obviously, as feeding into the lean projects. You're maintaining high quality for those projects. And then the other side that we all are into right now, and you're into it, I know as well, you're trying to do more with less, specifically with less people. And so we're trying to do more with less resources, and we're having to look at it totally different. So that lean project is causing us to look at it from those three sides in everything that we're trying to do. So let's kind of summarize it or bring it back. So which methodology is going to work best? That's part of the lean mindset. The methodology should be chosen on lean principles, such as which methodology brings the most value, which methodology completes the project the fastest and the cheapest, not sacrificing quality, and which methodology functions best within the current culture and management support. Now, just because it functions the best in the current culture and management support does not mean that's where that organization needs to stay. If the projects are failing, if the projects are always behind, always over budget, always behind time, if you're not delivering much value to that customer, that might be one area that you specifically are going after on the attack to make some changes to, because even though it's there, even though you've got that methodology and it's a current culture and management support, that might be the area that needs the most change, because it has become very lackadaisical and has a lot of fluff in that methodology that should not be there. So what lean areas bring the most value? So bringing value to the customer can mean different things, as we know. So what are the top 5 values this project will bring to your customer? And it might be something different on the next project. Which value appears to be the most important to the customer in meetings and discussions when they talk about it? How can the PM and team plan the project to deliver value of time and cost while supporting what brings the most value? So you're trying to bring the value that the customer wants in each of these times, and that's part of that lean mindset. What tools work best in the project? Tools or techniques must work together to move the project through the process, regardless of which process it is. And the tools are versatile enough in some cases for you to use in different things. Tools themselves can adjust to various methodologies. I can use some traditional things over in Agile, or I use some traditional tools over in hybrid. Tools might require training or coaching people from the project manager to verify that everyone understands how to use the tool. For an example, a fishbone. We've all heard of fishbone. We've all heard of the root cause analysis, and that's connected to the fishbone in using what's called the 5 why analysis. But many people have never done a 5 why analysis, even though it's a great tool for problem solving. So just running through how to do that particular analysis using that tool changes the whole dynamics. If you ask someone, do they know how to do it? Most of the time they'll say yes, but that might not be true. Then also discussion areas in project management. How much of the project methodology must one use for this project? Do we have to use 100% of everything no matter what? Also, if a portion of the methodology is not used, what is the ripple effect on communication, on funding, on approvals or support? So if we don't use this, does it cut out approvals that somebody's going to have a huge problem with? And so how are we going to handle that? Does management trust the project manager and the team enough to allow lean adjustments to happen consistently? Now, this will happen over time as you start putting lean principles in and you start having some successes, and management's trust will grow, but it's not demanded from the team. It happens over time from growth because the team is doing some good stuff that's helping the project and the efficiencies, but they're building that relationship with management, which is going to be very good. What changes in communication reporting is expected due to the methodology change? What changes in approval levels for the project manager, the team, or the PMO must be clarified? Because, for an example, if you've got 15 sign-offs right now, you know that's an area that something needs to happen. And so, but in cutting those sign-offs down, how many sign-offs do you really need? That you can, some of them do bring value, but 15 probably don't. But some of them do. You might have 5 that, you know what, we need these 5 to be happening as we go along here. What areas of resistance is possible? Who might be roadblocks when you start doing some of this stuff? When you start taking pieces out of the process, and especially when you're talking about sign-offs, you're going to have some resistance. And so you always have to make sure that, be very graceful when working with people on this, because remember, it's not a big deal to you because you see the inefficiency. But if it's taking my signature that I've been doing for the last 10 years I'm no longer going to do that signature, it feels almost like a demotion to me. So we have to handle that very, very easily. All right, so lean in scheduling projects. Because lean looks for inefficiencies, it can benefit scheduling by looking for down or waiting time in the schedule. And so this is one of the real specifics that we would look at on the project side. So each activity that we're looking at here on this slide is a finish to start relationship with 10 hours of waiting time. So in other words, we look at activity A. Activity A is 10 hours. It's a finish to start relationship. You see the arrow coming out of the back and leading into activity B. Then activity B is 25 hours. And so then you'll notice activity B has a finish to start relationship, but it's a 10-hour waiting time. And so it's not good. It's not waiting time because of good stuff. It's just waiting time before we go to activity C. So it's that 10 hours that we're looking at there in the yellow box. That is that inefficiency. That why do we wait here 10 hours? What is the purpose for this? Is there a way for us to minimize that? Even if it can only cut it down to 5 hours, you have still made that process more efficient. You've still helped that project become more efficient. Can we not get rid of all of that 10 hours some way? So that's what you're looking at. So the 10 hours of waiting time can be removed to speed the process flow up, or that part of the project up. And that's what you're looking for. And that's what many of you do day in and day out. Your eyes will scan the Gantt chart, and you will start looking for places in that schedule to speed things up. So the other side of this is doing more with less. And oh my goodness, I know you guys have all had to do this. So you're doing more with less can mean different things to the industry or to the organization. More with less can mean less employees. And that's what almost everybody across the country is experiencing right now. My goodness, have you ever seen so many hiring? It is really the employees' call today on where you want to work, but less employees, less money, less time, less management. All of this is happening right now. And so we are having to do more with less consistently from every angle. Doing more with less employees focuses on how to use each employee in the most effective way. Which employees should be placed on specific projects, which employees should lead out on different project specialties, which employees need retraining and movement to another area. And some of this happens not because they're a bad employee, but because the area they know is no longer really where the efficiencies are, where the needs are, where a subject matter expertise needs to be. We need new expertise in the future. Projects are consistently attempting to spend the least amount of money possible. What type of research helps to understand the pricing range for products and services for the project? Where can I purchase project supplies the cheapest and still maintain high quality? Can the price of the project components be cheaper if purchasing from one vendor? One of the things you're looking at right now, everything everything's going up in price. I mean, everything just every time you turn around. But like for an example, as you start looking at different things and you start looking at risk, we all have different connections that we're concerned about. So let's just take the news today. Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile all within the next few months will stop their 3G. And of course, 3G, you think, well, that's my telephone. Well, telephone's a big piece of it, but 3G also runs a lot of the alerts for our elderly. So if you happen to be have a bunch of nursing homes and you have elderly, they're wearing these emergency alerts, they run on 3G. So that would be a huge project to try to replace some of those 3G components or 3G devices, because that's no longer going to work. My question that went through my mind is, will my GPS work? Because many of the cars have 3G technology. So will my GPS still work? That's about 5 years old. So, or will that be something? So a lot of these different pieces that you're looking at, and so you're having to stay on top of, okay, if 3G goes out in the next 6 months, what impact is that going to have to us as a company, as an organization, to us on our side? Completing projects at a faster pace only works if the projects are prioritized, and this is one of the big gaps that we all see. And we haven't been real good on prioritizing the projects in most cases. And so we have to get better at this. Am I working on the number one project for our company? Am I working on the number two project? Not just the next project in the line, but the most important. So many team members do not understand the priority of the project and how it supports the strategic plan, but every project should be driving some component of that strategic plan. So what priority is the project compared to the others? Does the priority of the project frequently change? What is making this project priority so great? What steps can be removed in the project to speed it up? What time is the project forced to wait for a decision, which can be removed? So all of these are looking at, if we're driving the most important project, then that is the one that's going to bring the biggest benefit or return on investment to the organization. The problem is that we have multiple projects like that with our organization being very large, and you find yourself spread across 3 to 5 of these. And so what happens is you are working on the most important project, but you've got 3 most important projects or 5 most important projects, which are very much a challenge. So doing more with less, also the ratio of managers to the employees has decreased since the early 1970s. In the early 1970s, it was something like 1 in 7 in many of the textbooks. But if you look at some of the newer textbooks on management today, it's something like 1 in 75 or 80. And so what happens is that you've got less management for the number of people they're having to supervise. So that means that our people have to be self-governing, self decision making in order to be able to move along and do what they need to do. So one of the best ways to decrease management and increase authority for projects is by authorizing the project managers and their teams to make more decisions. And you see this on the Agile side. Your Scrum teams and your Agile teams, they spend their time executing, not asking for permission. They're running wide open. And so that's the reason why people like that. But that doesn't fit the culture in every organization. And so the projection of the ratio of managers is expected to continue to decrease more and more. But what you're seeing is project management is growing because of that decrease of managers, so that authority can go to those teams. Now, in Lean, you have 3 different terms, 3 different Japanese terms that come up. Muda, which is waste, and this is a huge one. You're looking at how can we reduce waste. Mura, which is unevenness, and Muri, which is overburden. And so these come up in almost every textbook that you read with this. But the biggest emphasis that many times we're talking about is how to reduce waste. But all 3 of these are huge in what we do. So let's look at them one at a time. So Muda focuses on waste. Waste increases cost and time. So whether it's waste of time or waste of products, waste of supplies, whatever it is. So there's 2 types of Muda. Necessary waste, which is necessary waste Muda. Examples would be service, mandated training, testing. So sometimes we look at that as waste, but it's necessary waste that has to happen. But once again, it does take time. And then you have unnecessary Muda, which adds no value to the organization or to the customer. It's the unnecessary Muda that we don't want to have in our projects, we don't want to have there, because we're wanting something to be value added. And so if it's not value added, then that person or that company is not going to see that this is benefiting them. The Mura focuses on the uneven flow of work, Work which requires waiting or accumulation of a large batch of items before the process can be completed is considered wasted time, because if we're having to batch everything before we can actually run it, and that batch is a 4-hour batch, that's looked at as 4 hours of wasted time. So team members should seek ways to reduce the need to stop a process or batch a group of items. And so in other words, what you're seeing is, the people are coming up with ideas of how, rather than batching something, they're able to go ahead and get something out in smaller groups, smaller packaging of these things to be able to process this. And you're seeing this with your technology. Rather than batch 300 or 1,000 of these units, we're now being able to batch a dozen of them and go ahead and get them out the door to where the customer can have them. And then the last one, which it comes up in a lot of your material, is called Murray, and it focuses on the undue stress in the process or the workflow. Normally focuses on the level of uneven work and wrong expectations, and we've all had this from something. But it can be self-imposed by the worker who takes on more than what is realistic. These individuals could take on more work due to ego or ignorance in the level of work. But the point is this ability for us to be able to take work away from somebody who's overloaded so that we're not burning them out. And this is really a value where you're valuing that worker, because you're making sure that you minimize that burnout. You're minimizing them doing all this work on their own. And eventually they're going to become negative. They're going to be wore out, and you might even lose them on your team or from your company. And that's what you're not wanting to do. Now, continuing to improve with Lean. Because Lean is such a powerful tool, methodology, all the above, it's Lean and continuous improvement are connected to make things better. And so, like I said, we're going to be talking about continuous improvement because that has just been put into the new PMI's PMBOK 7. And so RIE, rapid improvement events, short-term events that provide improvement and resolution to problems noticed by the customer, project manager, or project team. Now, in PMI's PMBOK 7th edition, they're not calling it rapid improvement events, but they are encouraging people when they're working on a project and do the lessons learned, that part of the lessons learned is to look at something to improve, regardless whether it's traditional or agile. What can we improve? What can we get better at? And so you're looking at something to be able to make better, something to be able to reduce waste, whatever the case may be. It can last from a few hours to 5 or 6 days. They're created to accomplish short-term advances in solving of problems. This is a great tool to be able to utilize in project, traditional, hybrid, or agile, to look at those rapid improvement events, something that we can change. Can I move a couple of steps and get a couple of these steps out of this process so that we can deliver this faster? And so you're making advances. That's that continuous improvement idea. Now, there's some warning signs that we have to be careful of as we're looking at Lean and all of this. The lack of leadership support. Everything does rise and falls on leadership, and it's very important for us to make sure that we've got leadership support, not just by words, but that they are engaged, they understand it, and they're not threatened by what you're doing. Lean can be threatening because you're changing so many different things. And so you have to make sure that everybody's on board with this. So leaders are disengaged and only support Lean on a part-time basis, you're going to have trouble with this, especially the more authority they have, they've got to be more engaged than that. Leaders who do not attend high priority meetings, that's a concern. Leaders pull the SMEs off or other key team members off for other duties. That's going to be a concern, especially when you're working on some of these projects. Are leaders making negative or derogatory comments about the Lean process or about the Lean transition of what you're trying to do? All of those are major concerns because people are going to quote these leaders as you start making these changes. And then perception progress is low. So perception can be wrong unless it's based on quantifiable measures. And so people get different perceptions, especially as you're making the transition to where you're putting more of the Lean principles and tools into effect. And so team members and leaders slow the program down or divert resources elsewhere. Those are all going to be warning signs as well, that they're not really supportive. You don't want people turning it on and turning it off. We've had those kind of programs in the past. You want people who are going to be super supportive of this as you start implementing them. And here's the thing, if something's not really working working like you thought it was going to, you're able still to make changes in it. If it still doesn't work, then get rid of it. Go back to the way it was. But the point is you want that flexibility, and normally you're going to be making something much better. Now, I ran across this. This is Eaton is the practitioner, and so this is called the Lean Practitioner's Handbook. I thought it was excellent. So he gives you 6 elements of success, comparing success and weaknesses. And so those 6 elements across the top was pressure for action, clear and shared vision, engaged staff, capability, effective processes, and continuous improvement. And these are looked at as lean success. And he said, without the things above, you will get the things below. And I thought this was a great graphic, because he said, if you don't have those things at the top, what are we going to have? Inertia, confusion, resistance, frustration, disjointed activities, benefits start slipping away. And so in other words, those benefits are going to be getting smaller and smaller all the time. What a great graphic to be able to let us understand that if you want the stuff at the top, then we've got to be able to anchor that into that organization. But if we don't have it and you've got all the things at the bottom, it's because we don't have those things at the top, and that has just chipped away at what we're doing. Now, let me go into this and give you a couple of things about some new information. First off, many of you, if you probably have read this in one of our newsletters, but we have started something called a free PMP mastermind group. I'm finishing up one today, and so we're doing 3 of them each year, and so we're doing a free mastermind group, and so it allows people to be able to get into the mastermind group. It's for 1 week, 1 hour a day for 5 days. It talks about the PMP, how to sign up for your application. And we do 2 Zoom calls to answer questions to help you be able to look at the PMP. And one of the things that we do is we give 1 free scholarship away for someone to attend the PMP boot camps for free. And so this is our 3rd one this week. And so I don't know who won it today, but Kim will have an email going out to the participants, letting them know who won. And so we've had 3 people who have won a free scholarship, because we've done 3 of these. And so we've got 2 more. And so this costs nothing. If you're going to be working on your PMP, or you know someone else who does or will, we've got 1 in May and 1 in September. And so you go to the website, you can sign up. You'll attend for those 5 days, 1 hour a day for 5 days. And so it's any hour you want to do it. And you're going to watch a video and respond to a discussion board kind of thing, and participate in the Zoom call if you'd like. But anyway, you'll have 5 contact hours for that. And those are going to be coming up in May and September. And then we have virtual exam prep boot camps that's coming up for the PMP. So we have 6 of these. And so we do not have a face-to-face going on right now. The test changed last January, and so it's been changed for a year now, and the material comes out of PMI. And so you have to purchase the material from PMI in order to pass the test. And so it's not like the test used to be. It's not the old PMBOK, using all the PMBOKs, and everybody had a PMBOK and we went through the PMBOK. None of that today. They have their own material, and so you purchase the material for each person and take them through that material. And the material is excellent, and the passing rates have been outstanding with the new material. So if you're thinking about doing your PMP, this is the time to do it, because I think the test is more straightforward now than it has ever been. It's still hard, but it's not like it was in the past, where you felt like you were guessing a lot. So anyway, here's our boot camps. We're doing it live, instructor-led virtual. I'm doing this, and the material has been outstanding. And so that will show you some of these. And then next month's webinar is going to be continuous improvement and the impact on project management. So this is the new piece that PMI has brought into their PMBOK. And so we'll be talking about continuous improvement and how that works. Lean and continuous improvement are kind of connected very easy. And so that's going to be on February the 11th. So it's not very far. It's just a couple of weeks away at 10 a.m. And so we'll have some information out on that. So let me stop right here. What questions do you have about anything before I get you guys out of here? What questions do you have on anything? All right. Well, let me thank you so much for taking your time and being part of this. I look forward to this every month. And so I hope to see you next month as we talk about continuous improvement. And so I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Okay. Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much for being here. Bye now.